in College Station, Texas. It's where all the eyes of the college football world will be on Saturday night. And this one maybe took a little bit of a hit after the Aggies lost to Auburn in 4 overtimes, but because Alabama then went and lost to Oklahoma, the winner of this game goes to the SEC championship. And there is maybe no bigger prize at the end of the proverbial rainbow than a spot in Atlanta for either the Longhorns or the Aggies. Texas is ranked 3rd in the country. Texas A&M comes in at number 20 in the latest playoff rankings. Texas right now is sitting at a 6-point favorite. Trey, as we look towards this game, College Game Day is going to be there. A lot of implications are on the line. Texas won the last meeting in 2011. Justin Tucker kicks that infamous walk-off field goal. Texas owns the series lead 76-37 and 5 ties all time. There's been a lot of burnt orange running through this rivalry, much to the chagrin of the three of us. But Mike Elko has a chance to do something that would not only send shockwaves through the rivalry and through these two programs, but through college football in general. And although Texas A&M is coming off a loss and Texas is coming off a win against Kentucky, there do seem to be some things, some matchups where maybe the Aggies can take advantage of the Texas Longhorns Saturday night in Kyle Field.
You can certainly paint the picture. I am really interested, and I was thinking about this today when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about with this game. I'd love to get y'all's take. Is the better path for an A&M victory trying to turn this into an offensive game or a defensive game? Because up until maybe 2 weeks ago, you would have said it's obviously defensive. If the defensive can just keep getting stops, eventually you just hope your offense can chip away. But the fortunes of Texas A&M have done a complete 180 the last couple of weeks, especially in those 2 road games against South Carolina and Auburn. Those were losses that I think you pin way more on the defense than you do on the offense, whether it's missing tackles, whether it's not getting ready to play at the beginning of the game and falling behind early and making your offense dig out of a hole that you started. It seems like the offense is well ahead of the defense at this point, and it's something that I'm quite frankly shocked to be saying that sitting here in the last week of November, but would love to know y'all's thoughts. Is a better A&M path to victory turning this into an offensive game or a defensive game?
I don't think that you want to make this an offensive game, mostly because the issue for Texas A&M's defense has been the big play. And so if this is becoming an offensive game, that's not the route that you want to go. You don't want to try to go and compete with Texas on the big play stuff, because right now, I think it's obvious to say Texas has the clear advantage at wide receiver. I trust Texas wide receivers to make more plays than A&M wide receivers right now, regardless of quarterback play, right? Like regardless of, if Marcel Reed comes and his fastball is on, or if Quinn Ewers is a little hobbled, or like whatever case you want to try to make as an Aggie fan, I don't think that you can make that case with the receivers, right? I think the receivers are clearly better for Texas. If A&M wants to win this game, if this is going to be a game that A&M comes out on top of, they're going to have to limit the big plays. They're going to have to drop those safeties, and they're going to have to be okay with the 15-yard completion, with the 20-yard completion, because they just can't give up the 50 and the 60-yarders, right? If you look at the game against Auburn, even the games against, South Carolina, it's not that these offenses drove the ball consistently. It's that they just busted big plays, right? It was, no gap assignments whatsoever, and the running back hits a cutback and he's off to the races. Or, it's just the safeties lost, where they were on the field, and now you see Cam Coleman running past you, right? That's the issue with the A&M defense. So if they can keep the big plays down, that's a big if, but if they can keep the big plays down, it's going to take a lot of effort to drive the ball on A&M's defense.
I think for me, this game comes down to Texas A&M's defensive line against Texas's offensive line. And so in that way, I think Texas A&M still needs to find a way to win a defensive match. I don't think, like Garrett's saying, I don't think you can keep up with the horses that Texas has. We just haven't seen that from the Aggies. Yes, they hit a couple of big plays. They've had, honestly, more chunk plays through the running game this year than they have through the passing game. I don't know that you can reliably anticipate the Aggies being able to push the ball down the field against one of the best secondaries in the entire country. Texas is the top scoring defense in the nation right now. And so your path to victory through the offensive lens is already very, very slim. I think the Aggies need to turn this into a rock fight. The reason why I mentioned the pass rush for the Aggies is those 2 losses that they had both on the road. And heck, even if you go back to the week 1 against Notre Dame, this vaunted defensive line that has 2 edge rushers that are projected to go in the top 20 picks in a lot of places, Nick Skirton and Shamar Stewart, they've been kind of MIA for the Aggies when the moment has been the biggest, when the lights have been the brightest. And to be honest, I'm not really sure why that is. I don't know if it's been scheme. I don't know if it's just been, game planning from the offensive side. I don't have the answer for that. But if the Aggies are going to hang with the Texas Longhorns and even contend to knock them off and go to Atlanta for the first time in their history as an SEC team, you're going to have to see the pass rush get home. Quinn Ewers is a very talented quarterback, but he is certainly far from his best when he's got pass rushers in his face. For me, if your strategy and your results don't start there winning the battle against that front 5 in the Longhorns, who have actually been pretty average, giving up sacks this year. They've given up 21 sacks. That's like right in the middle of the pack as far as national metrics go. If it doesn't start there, I think this could potentially be a long night for Texas A&M.
Well, and Mitch, you hit on it perfectly. That was something I was coming in with, was the idea that Quinn Ewers, when pressured, does tend to struggle. There's issues when pressured. And I think you can see that most in the game against Arkansas. If you go back a couple weeks, you saw it because, the Arkansas pass rush did a really good job pressuring him, getting after him, had a couple sacks in that game. And you started to see Quinn just kind of miss deep balls. Sometimes he'd find the read, sometimes he wouldn't, maybe hang on to the ball just a second or two too long. That is your path to success against this Texas offense right now. The path that they don't want to go is Texas just being able to hit those little quick passes that they're so good at, right? And they get their angles and they get their leverage and they get blockers in space and they catch you off guard to the screen. And then it's off to the races, right? The Aggies have not been very good at tackling the last couple of weeks. So, that's the nightmare scenario for the Aggies. If you can find ways to put them into longer situations, right? 2nd and 8, 3rd and 7, things like that, then you're going to probably have a better chance at forcing some of those play calls to stay, over on that other side and force Quinn to drop back a little bit more. If you can't do that, that's a problem. Another question I kind of had I'm looking down Texas schedule right now. Is there a chance, and I'm kind of curious what y'all think, is there a chance that Marcel Reed is going to be the toughest quarterback that Texas has played this year?
It will certainly be the toughest combination of quarterback and defense and environment that Texas has walked into this year. Obviously, their first SEC road night game. They went to Michigan week 2, and that was a noon kickoff. And yes, there were over 110,000 people there, but this is going to be a whole different animal that they're going to walk into. And I think you're right. I think Marcel Reed has the chance. Now, the Texas defense could make this statement moot, but he has the chance to put up by far the best quarterback performance. And it's definitely a chicken or egg situation. Is it Texas defense making quarterbacks look really bad, or is it they just haven't really played a quarterback that's tested them yet? We're going to find out, because Marcel Reed is maturing right before our very eyes and had a really good game in a tough environment with all the odds stacked against him after the way that started last week. Guys, I think the path to victory for A&M, going back to my original question, I think it's turning it into an offensive game, but not a shootout. I think the offense has to lead the way, and they have to help the defense by staying on the field and driving and finishing drives. That's something A&M is really, really good at, especially in SEC play. When they get in the red zone, they typically finish drives with touchdowns and not field goals. They have to continue that this Saturday if they're going to find a way to upset Texas, and they have to dominate the time of possession battle. Make Texas beat you with big plays and then prevent those big plays. It's twofold. They haven't done a great job of preventing the big plays, but if you can force Texas into having to press and make the big plays and not rely as much on the checkdowns and intermediate stuff, I think you can get in Quinn Ewers' head just a little bit, and I think that's your best path to victory. Don't know if it'll work, because they're certainly capable of giving up busted coverages to anybody. Hello, Bowling Green. Hello, New Mexico State. Hello, every team on the schedule this year. But if they can just find a way to feed off of that crowd's energy, and if the offense can find a way to keep the ball for a long time and cash in on those opportunities, I think that's the best path to me.
Feels like Texas A&M also has to just execute the little things, right? They beat Auburn
It's a trigger word.
7 ways to Sunday last week. If they're, about a dozen things individually don't go wrong between drop passes, between dumb penalties, questionable penalties. I think that's a very different result. Trey, I'll ask you this. You highlight Marcel Reed as the X factor for Texas A&M. Most people may be surprised to know that he's ranked 12th in the country, which, first of all, branding, in total QBR. Quinn Ewers is down in the 30s. So statistically, Marcel Reed has moved the needle a little bit more efficiently than Quinn Ewers has. Marcel Reed is also going to face probably the most ferocious front seven that he's faced to date this year. Texas's linebackers have been tearing opposing quarterbacks apart. Colin Simmons has been electric off the edge, the true freshman. You've had Anthony Hill, a one-time Texas A&M commit, who's done quite a bit of good things, both in the run and in pass defense. He can get to the quarterback. So what does Marcel Reed have to do in order to not only just kind of keep his head above water against his Texas front seven, but also execute, there's your word again, enough to beat the Longhorns in an upset?
He has to be willing to use his legs and just take what little things they are willing to give him. Because you saw it last week against Auburn. He was finding really nice spots in the zone. I don't know that Texas is going to be willing to go as much into zone, but if they go into man-to-man, it's going to be him versus one spy. And he's got to be ready to use his legs when they do that. I think that the way to beat A&M's receivers is to go into man-to-man. They really struggle with separation. But then you have to worry about Marcel Reed's legs. So identifying that coverage, realizing the leverage that he's going to have and actually using it. He was a lot more decisive against Auburn. You felt confident with the ball in his hands. And he has to keep that going if he's going to take down Texas and lead this to a victory. I'm wondering, yes, this is going to be the toughest test that he's had, but I'm almost wondering if Texas is fantastic at not giving up big plays, but the Aggie offense doesn't really rely on explosive plays. They rely on getting the chunks 10 to 15 yards at a time. They're not really worried. They had a big touchdown on a busted coverage against Auburn last week, but that really hasn't been what they do week in, week out this year. So I'm wondering if A&M's not going to be fazed by the fact that they can't get a big play that really opens things up, and that kind of helps Marcel Reed settle in, ironically.
I also think a big part of this, guys, is the A&M game plan has to be keeping the Texas offense on the sideline, right? It has to be long drives and, keep them at a rhythm, and I don't think you want to hit the big plays if you're A&M. I think you want to kind of keep your offense on the field, give your defense a chance to breathe. Yeah, you want to score points, obviously. And, if they're throwing the ball over their heads all day, then I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Aggie fans taking it, but that's probably not how this works out. I mean, I just looked it up to see what the numbers were. This year for Texas, the highest passing yardage number is 211. That happened last week against Kentucky. The only other team that's passed for 200 yards on them this year is, funny enough, Michigan at 204. So not exactly a defense that gives up a lot of yards through the air. Not a defense that's really gotten beat a whole bunch. If Marcel Reed throws for 250, that's a Herculean effort. That's just where you have to start asking, is that good enough, right? Because the way that Texas probably wins this game is by hitting a lot of those explosive plays, is by getting your guys with numbers, running up the sidelines, little screen with a convoy type of thing, and just trusting their guys to beat the A&M guys, right? That's just probably how that works out. So, I mean, I don't think that the Aggie offense probably wants to get into a big play battle with them. I think they want to grind it out, control the time of possession, and find a way to keep the Texas offense on the sideline and hope that the timing gets off and, they can maybe keep the crowd in it a little bit and not let them get too far ahead too quick.
Well, so call your shot. Texas favored by 6 Saturday night in front of what will inevitably be the largest crowd in Kyle Field history. Like I said, all eyes on this game. Texas has not been super fazed by everything that's been thrown against them so far this year. Whether that's been impressive in your mind, there's a debate there. But Texas favored by a touchdown, pending the extra point against the Aggies. Which way are you leaning?
Look, everything about my brain is telling me Texas is going to win this football game. Just looking at the way the Aggies have played defense the last couple of times out in the SEC, watching the tackling. I don't think that's going to be good enough. I do think Texas is going to have a lot of success on the offensive side. Also, the little nugget about no holding penalties getting called for 30 quarters against A&M is also going to be a problem with the whole let's get after Quinn Ewers, because up until the moment an SEC ref calls a hold, I just don't believe it's going to happen. So everything in my brain is telling me that's what's going to happen. But guys, this is the first time we've gotten a chance to pick this game on the podcast. So as much as my mind's telling me no, my body's telling me yes. I'm quoting R. Kelly on this one. I'm just going to pick the Ags. I can't do it. I'm picking the Ags in this one. I think the difference here is Kyle Field. I don't think we're going to see anything like this. We won't have anything to compare it to from a previous environment. It's going to be raucous. It's going to be crazy. Teams haven't had a lot of success on the road in the SEC this month. There's been a whole lot of just kind of home chalk that you can go with there. And even though A&M is not the favorite in this one, I do think home field is going to matter here at the end of the season. So give me a highly motivated, slightly pissed off A&M squad with Kyle Field behind them to go ahead and pull off the upset.
All right. Local sources down here telling me, guys, that the local authorities are ramping up for Saturday all weekend. It's going to be a madhouse down here all over Brazos County. There's going to be people bursting at the seams. I can't wait to be a part of that atmosphere. Can't wait to have you guys down here local to be part of the atmosphere. We will likely not be in the stadium because Home Field is a fantastic sponsor. They are not that good of a sponsor. But man, I want to believe. I want to believe, Garrett. I think I'll ultimately sit on the fence. I think A&M covers the spread, but Texas finds a way to win by about 3 or 4 points.
I think the home field model is good. There is a weird trend that just nobody in the SEC is winning going on the road this year. The biggest games are won by the home team. Even when it's felt like that home team has not been playing a great football as of late, right? I mean, you guys were picking, Garrett, you picked Tennessee outright against Georgia. Trey, you were, I can't remember if you picked Georgia or Tennessee, but you were certainly espousing the odds that Tennessee could compete and maybe even win that game. I'm going to take Texas, though. Eventually, someone has to just play solid ball. Eventually, the hot team has to win out. And listen, Texas has not been a world beater every single week that they've lined up. There hasn't really been that one team week in and week out that's just beat the doors off somebody by 40. But I do think Texas has found a way to win, and they've been very fundamentally sound in the way that they've gone about it. Their defense is forcing turnovers. They're fast. They're physical. They don't give up points. I would love to think that Texas A&M could rally. And hey, LSU's found that out the last, 3 times that they've come to College Station. They've looked like the better team coming in. They've looked like the hotter team coming in. And each time they've left with a loss at the hands of the Aggies of various records. I'm certainly going to be rooting for that to be happening on Saturday night, but I'll pick with my football brain. I think Texas is a much more complete, a much more advanced team at this stage. They go on to win the SEC championship game, and they go on to get a first-round bye in the college football playoff. Would love to know your – oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. If Texas wins this game, given the circumstances and given what's at stake, it would be the best road win of any team of the entire season. Just
No
to
doubt.
go back on your point
100%.
of who's actually done well on the road this year. This would be the biggest road win of any team of the entire season if Texas pulls it off.
Totally agree. Ironically, the 2 best road wins in the country could both happen at Kyle Field this year with Notre Dame and then Texas if that happens. Let us know which side of the what is this now? The Lone Star Showdown? I've forgotten who the sponsor is, some cotton company. Let us know who you're picking. Texas minus the 6 or are the Aggies upset-minded, going to take down the Longhorns? We would love to know.
Gracious him. How about that?